In this video, I will show you how to add sound effects to your weapons in Unreal Engine 5. These will include gunshots, reloading and drop weapon sound effects, which change for all of your different weapons. This video is part of my weapon system tutorial series, so if you're not up to date, I'll leave a link to the first video on the screen now and also in the description below. So now let's get straight into adding some sound effects to our weapons. To start, we're going to need some sound effects. So I've left a link in the description to where you can download these. They include some sound effects for reloading, as well as some for gunshots and also dropping and equipping weapons. So all you need to do is download this and import it to your project. Once you have them imported, you can click on these play buttons to hear what they sound like. If you want to adjust their volume, you can just open one of them, then come over here to set the volume. You could also adjust the pitch if you want to. However, I'm just going to leave these set to 1. So now we can just close this and we're going to move on to setting up a gunshot sound effect. To do this, go to the content browser and open up your base weapon blueprint. In here, you want to come over to your create shot trace event. Then you want to come over to just after our ammo logic. Just before where we're spawning our muzzle flash, drag off the false pin and search for a play 2D sound. If we now go to the drop down and select one of our gunshot sound effects, then compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, if you pick up a weapon and shoot it, you will hear that a gunshot sound effect is played every time a bullet is fired. However, at the moment, the same gunshot sound effect is played for all weapons. So I'm going to quickly show you how to set up different sound effects for different weapons. So start by coming back to the base weapon blueprint. Here you want to come over to the play 2D sound, then right click on the sound pin and promote it to a variable. I'm going to name this Gunshot Sound Effect. If we compile and save, this variable can now be accessed in all of our different weapons. So go to the content browser and open up one of your child weapons. I'm going to start with the full auto rifle. Then if you go to class defaults, then come over here, you can set the gunshot sound effect you want to use. For this weapon, I'm just going to leave it set to Gunshot 1. Now I'm going to go to the content browser and open the semi-auto rifle. Again, in class defaults, we can set the gunshot sound effect, so I'm going to set it to Gunshot 2. Now, if we compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, our weapon should now have different shooting sound effects. Next, we're going to move on to adding sound effects when the player reloads their weapon. For this, go to the content browser and open up your character blueprint. Once in here, you want to find your reload event. There are 4 different events in our reload system. However, we only need to add sound effects to when the player unloads and loads the magazine. So first, we want to come over to the end of our unload code. Then we're going to drag off and search for a play 2D sound. For now, we can just go to this drop down and set it to one of our unload sound effects. Next, we want to come over to the end of where we load the magazine. Then, like we did before, we're going to drag off and search for a play 2D sound. Set this to one of our load sound effects. If we compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, then pick up a weapon, shoot a few bullets, then reload, you will hear that we now have 2 sound effects that play. One when the character pulls the magazine out of the gun, and then another when they put the magazine into the gun. Next, we're going to make it so that different weapons have different reload sound effects. So, start by going over to the base weapon blueprint. Here we're going to create 2 variables, one for each reload sound effect. I'm going to name the first one Load Sound Effect. Next, we want to set the type to a sound base, making sure that it's an object reference. Next, we can add another variable, calling it Unload Sound Effect. This should also be of the type sound base. Now we can compile and save this, then head over to our full auto weapon. In our class defaults, we should now be able to access these 2 variables. So I'm going to set the load sound effect to load 1, then set the unload sound effect to unload 1. Compile and save this, then go over to the semi-auto weapon. In here I'm going to set the load sound effect to load 2, then the unload sound effect to unload 2. Then I can just compile and save this. Next we want to come back to our character blueprint where we're going to plug these variables into our play sound nodes. Start by coming up to where we play our unload sound effect. To get the unload sound effect variable, we first need to drag in our current weapon variable. Then drag off this and search for a get unload sound effect. Then we can just connect this to the play 2D sound. Then we can come down to where we play our load sound effect. We're going to do the same, so first drag in the current weapon variable. Then drag off it and search for a get load sound effect. Then finally connect it to the play 2D sound. If we compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play. If you test out reloading different weapons, you will hear that they now have different reload sound effects. The final sound effects we're going to add is for when the player switches weapons. This will include an equip weapon sound effect, and also a sound effect for when the dropped gun hits the ground. We'll start with our dropping sound effect, so go to the content browser and open your base weapon pickup. Once here, you want to right click on the graph and search for an event hit. This will trigger when the gun mesh collides with the ground. Next, we want to make it so that this sound effect can only play once. So drag off the event and search for a do once node. Instead of using a play 2D sound, we're actually going to use a play sound at location node. So drag off here and search for a play sound at location. The reason we're using this is because we want the player to hear exactly where the weapon hits the ground. So now we can go to this drop down and select the gun drop sound effect. For the location, we just want to drag off here and search for a get actor location. So now when our weapon is dropped, as soon as it hits the ground, the drop sound effect will play at the location of the weapon. Something we need to quickly do to make this work is select the mesh of the gun, then go over to the details panel and search for a simulation generates hit events. We want to make sure that this is set to true. Now if we compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play. If you pick up a weapon, then pick up another one to drop it, you will hear that the drop weapon sound effect does play, however it only seems to happen when the gun falls onto its side. This is because only the main body of the weapon has the generate hits enabled. All of the other parts of the weapon, such as the magazine and the barrel that we added in our children blueprints, do not yet have this enabled. So go to the content browser and open your full auto weapon pickup. In here we can hold shift to select all of the other parts of the weapon. Then in the details panel we can search for generate hit events. Then we just want to set it to true. Then I'm just going to do the exact same for my semi-auto weapon pickup. So select all the weapon parts, then set generates hit events to true. If we now compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, you will now hear that the drop sound effect plays once as soon as any part of the weapon pickup hits the ground. Since we're always using the same sound effect for this, if you pick up weapons in quick succession, the noise it makes can become very repetitive. A common way to fix this is to randomly adjust the pitch of the sound effect every time it plays, so that each time it sounds slightly different. So to do this, first go to the content browser and locate your gun drop sound effect. Then we want to right click on it, then select Create Cue. We can just leave this named as it is, then open it. If you click play, you can hear our drop weapon sound effect. To randomly adjust the pitch, we want to drag off here and search for a modulator. Then just connect it to the output. Then on the left, we can set the range that our pitch will fall in. We want to make the difference in sound subtle, so I would recommend not having too much difference between the minimum and maximum pitch. So I'm going to set the minimum to 0.9, then set the maximum to 1.1. You can also do the same for the volume, but I'm just going to leave them as they are. Now, if you click play a few times, you will hear that the sound effect is slightly different each time. So now we need to save this, then go over to our base weapon pickup. In here, we can just change our sound effect to our new sound cue. Now, if we compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, then keep picking up weapons, you will hear that the drop sound effect is slightly different each time. The final sound effect we're going to add is for when the player equips a new weapon. This is very easy to do, so start by going over to the character blueprint. In here, you want to find the event where we're spawning a new weapon. Then, in this bit of space, we can drag off and search for a play 2D sound. Then I'm just going to set this to the equip weapon sound effect. Now, if we compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, when you pick up a weapon, you should now have an equip sound effect. You should now have a full weapon sound effects system in Unreal Engine 5. In the next video, I'll be going over how to equip a primary and secondary weapon at the same time and be able to switch between them. If you would like to be notified when this video comes out, hit subscribe and click the notification bell. If you're finding this series useful, please consider leaving a like and commenting down below what you would like to see in future videos. Finally, a quick thank you to all of my Patrons and YouTube members, without whom I wouldn't be able to keep making these Unreal Engine tutorials. Thank you so much for watching.